Hello, everyone. Welcome into bonus episode of the Four Quarters podcast, powered by Four Quarters Media. I'm your host, Tyler Bennett, here with you once again. We build it as a bonus episode, but we're going to call it episode 35. Put a number to it anyways. Why not? Episode 35, we stay on the West Coast to wrap up another week as we get closer to the end of season 2. This is coming out on Friday the 13th. With the way 2020 has gone, hopefully Friday the 13th is not as bad as they normally are. Episode 35, again, we stay on the West Coast. We had Zachary and Matthias Klim of the Fraser Valley Cascades on episode 34 on Thursday, November 12th. That one came out today. We stay in the Canada West. We kind of just shift to the women's side of the ball. We chat with UBC Okanagan Heat women's basketball head coach Bobby Mitchell. And this one was a lot of fun. I say that about all of them. They're all just a lot of fun, but this one was a lot of fun. Right from the start, laughs, just chemistry. It just flowed really well. And we discussed a lot in the hour 40 or whatever it was that we talked. It didn't feel like it was that long. It was just a conversation, and turned out to be, again, an hour 40, hour 45 of great discussion, learning about his journey to how he ended up becoming the head coach at UBC Okanagan, how he got his start in coaching, which kind of gave into some peer pressure, if you will. They always tell you never to give in to peer pressure. He did. And as you'll hear him explain, everything just kind of fell into place as it was supposed to and when it was supposed to. And now would have been entering his third year at UBC Okanagan if it wasn't for the pandemic. It's just a lot of fun from the start. Right from the start, we had one of the more serious conversations that 2020 has brought forward. We looked at the representation of Black, Indigenous, and persons of color across U Sports, stemming from that article. If you haven't read it, I'll link it in this as well. But the article from CBC that came out on July 16th that looked at the numbers of, or the percentages of Black, Indigenous, persons of color in higher positions in U Sports. And we break those down in the interview. But just for those of you who don't know the numbers, just to give you some information to kind of dive into before you get into that interview. The Heat are one of 3 schools across all of U Sports, so 48 programs with a Black men's and women's basketball head coach, so one of 3. That's not a lot. There's only one school out of 56 that has an athletic director that is, in CBC's terms, non-white. So 1 of 56, which is less than 2%. And only 10% of positions that they looked at, which were nearly 400, whether it's football coaches, I believe basketball coaches, administration in the athletic departments, 10% were Black, Indigenous, or persons of color. So we looked at that off the top because that's probably one of the most pressing issues of 2020 that's brought forward is the fight for racial equality, and I wanted to make sure we gave that as much light as we needed and wanted to. And these are the tough conversations you have to have as a white male. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what the fight is. I know what the fight is. That was a bad choice of words. I don't know what it's like to be in that fight. And in order for myself to help, I need to put myself and have these conversations, because that's how we're going to learn. And I encourage everybody to have those tough conversations, because that's how you learn. Once we at that discussion, we got into Coach Mitchell's career, how he got his start into coaching, the success that he had at Vernon Secondary, where he got his start. Spoiler alert, didn't finish outside the top 8 in 9 years. That kind of speaks for itself. And then he told us how he kind of got in the door with UBC Okanagan, did a little bit of his own program building, if you will, right place, right time, which was kind of the theme of his career. Just really found himself where he needed to be and along every step of the way. And it took a lot of work from himself, discovered his passion, figured out this is what he wanted to do, ran with it, did what he could. And now, like I said, would have been entering his 3rd year as a head coach of the Heat if it wasn't for the pandemic, but they're still putting in work in the gym when they can. We looked at a couple star players on his team that didn't get the love they deserved. One for her whole career in Jordan Korol, and one who, despite what I found out, breaking her hand and missing a good chunk of her first year, put up record numbers, led U Sports in offensive rebounds per game, led all U Sports rookies in rebounds per game at over 10 per game. Jaeli Ibbetson put up massive numbers and didn't get the love she deserves. So we looked at the career of Jordan and what the rest of Jaeli's career could have in store. And then we closed it off with a discussion we have with everybody, how we can grow the level of coverage in Canada. And that was good. That was a good discussion too. So a lot of ideas came up. Hopefully someone that has some pull listens to this. I don't think they do, but you never know. But just again, from start to finish, a ton of fun. And I think you guys will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's jump right into bonus episode / episode 35 of the Four Quarters podcast, powered by Four Quarters Media, with myself and UBC Okanagan Heat women's basketball head coach, Bobby Mitchell. Enjoy. Okay, so I'm now thrilled to be joined by the head coach of the UBC Okanagan Heat women's basketball program, Coach Bobby Mitchell. Coach, how are things out on your end on the West Coast before we jump in here and get everything rolling?
Thanks for having me, first of all. Really appreciate being here. Overall, things are good. It's obviously a strange and unique time, but we've been fortunate where we're at. UBCO has been very supportive to us doing as much as we can safely and following a lot of the protocols, but overall good. We've been able to be in the gym and, see our team and prepare and go through live game situations. And I know some other programs, a lot of programs aren't able to do that right now. So,
right.
I wouldn't be able to say anything else, but we're doing pretty good right now.
And like we said before we jumped on here, this is the part of the coaching handbook or the coaching 101 that was never covered.
Yes.
And nobody really knows how to deal with this because it's the first time that we've all been in a global pandemic.
Yeah.
You just, like you said too, like your season plans are now daily, and even those change.
We've had practices planned out and we're told, oh, no, you're not able to do that. And I have to give credit to the group, to the team. They've adjusted. I mean, I think the first 2-3 weeks back, it was pretty abnormal. And now it's just, they've adjusted to protocols and getting a 9:30, 10 o'clock text. Hey, we're not going tomorrow, or this is the new plan. And just like you said, nobody's been prepared for it, but you adjust and day to day is the new way right now.
And I find too, just having talked to players and just coaches themselves too, like whenever you get the game taken away and then you have these certain rules that you have to follow in order to get back in the gym, guaranteed you're going to follow them, because no one wants to be that one person or that one school that loses it for everybody else. So
absolutely.
If you get that late text saying we're not going today or we're going tomorrow, but this is what we have to do, everybody's going to be on board, because I'm willing to bet they all have that itch to get back in the gym after what feels like forever that it was gone.
And that's what we kind of joked about is, we laughed. It's whatever we need to do to be in the gym. And if it's, 45 minutes and we got to be in masks and we got to be at a single hoop, well, we're 100%. We're all in kind of thing. And we don't want to be the program at our own institution that gets us shut down, let alone, causing anything else. So it's been easy to get them to buy in and do it and no complaints. So, it's awesome. Like, good group to have.
Yeah. And it's just good to be back in the gym with people, just having that social interaction, because I don't know about you, but when we first shut down and had to work from home, that's tough. Like, I can't go anywhere. Like, it's just my wife and I too. So like, you talk to the same person and you miss that extra social interaction, like just being able to go down the hallway and talk to somebody in an office, as opposed to now having to set up a Zoom meeting or send an email and wait.
Yeah.
So different.
I was so used to when everything shut down. I mean, that was our club basketball season. Right. That was a lot of stuff. Like, that's actually a really busy time. So it was odd to be doing nothing, like literally nothing, zero. And we got going on Zoom a little bit after that. And even that was, like you said, it was just strange. And, I think the first time we were able to be back in the gym, it was just excitement to be in there. And we were single hoops, no sharing, no partners, nobody cared. And something for the athletes that's tough is that is their only real, we're pretty strict with what they can and can't do when they're not in the gym. So that's their only really outlet. Their classes are online. They're not, there's no social gatherings. So to have it back is important, not just for the sport, but the mental health aspect of everything that's going on, and their identities and coaches included, like I said, there's no complaints about practices and no complaints about suicide and running. They'll do anything. It's great.
Right. This is probably the one time that they will willingly run a suicide lines, do whatever you want them to do, because 7 months without it, you don't realize how much you miss running lines until
100%.
You don't have to run them anymore.
Yeah, the punishments are like rewards now because they're in the gym. So it's interesting for sure.
They will take those punishments over having to sit at home on their own for another 7 months, I think 11 times out of 10.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
One thing I wanted to talk about before we get into your career, and I'm going to switch up the order of the things I sent you earlier, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Because I feel like it's the most important one out of them all. And it stems back from that CBC article that you were a part of back in July on the representation of Black, Indigenous, persons of color in U Sports, and you can add the CCAA in as well. For people, just some of the numbers that were in there when you were in it with Coach Tanisha Gittins out of Concordia as well. You guys are actually only one of 3 schools that have a Black men's and women's coach out of, there's 48 schools that play basketball, so 3 out of 48. That's not a big number by any means.
No.
Only 1 out of 56 schools under the U Sports umbrella have a athletic director that's, in their terms, and the article is not white. And then only 10% of positions that they featured were Black, Indigenous, or persons of color. Just kind of your thoughts on kind of the change that needs to happen, I guess. I think the big thing for me is just having these conversations to understand, get different perspectives on where things are, need to be, because I think that's the only way we're going to change is keep it in the forefront. Because after that article came out in July, I haven't seen much since from U Sports, CBC as a follow-up, or anybody. And I think that's an issue too.
And I think that you hit it on the head there. The conversation was great, and it is great. And, I'm happy to discuss it. And it's kind of interesting because when I heard you always knew, and you kind of looked around and, hey, there's not a whole lot of people that look like me. But when the numbers came out and I heard the numbers, it was kind of, even for myself, I was like, wow, that's that's staggering in terms of the gap there. But I do think having these conversations and continuing to have these conversations, and Clay and I, the men's coach, we chatted and we wanted to make sure that we don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable coming up and having these conversations and asking us questions and talking about it, because I think sometimes even just the uncomfortableness of having the conversation for some people means it doesn't happen. And I think for myself, a big thing is just wanting, people of color and Indigenous and everyone to know that you can do this, and this is an option for you, and providing a platform for them to have some opportunities, I think, is important. Obviously locally, but across the country, and we kind of talked about just us, representing this and being seen, and people can look at me and say, hey, he could be a head coach. Maybe I can, and I know some of the coaches have started some good initiatives around different universities, and I will say from UCO standpoint, they've been very supportive of us getting on board and being a part of that, and what do we need to do, and trying to keep the conversation going a little bit.
Right.
But to your point, I to my knowledge, I didn't see a follow up with the CBC article, and kind of go from there, and it definitely faded away, but there is some groundwork that is definitely being done, and the BCC Coaches Association is definitely doing a lot, and they've been amazing, and I think that, or I hope that maybe they can get a little bit more attention, and I can do my part and everybody can do their part, but there's enough, when I look at my time and just athletes that I've seen come through, there's been enough Black or Indigenous people of color athletes that are smart enough and wanted to do it, and there seems to be a it stops at the athlete side of things, right? And, there's you look around the country, there's a lot of Black athletes on a lot of teams. Why aren't they graduating to assistant coaches, to head coaches? Why aren't head coaches and assistant coaches moving up into an administrative role? I think those are the questions that still need to be talked about and discussed. And I don't have any major answers exactly why, but that still to me is the gap that should be bridged. And I think having this conversation and continuing to talk about it will help bridge it. And like I said, if I wasn't truly aware of how different the numbers were, and how even though I'm in it and I see people every day, I'm sure a lot of people aren't aware at all. Yeah.
And I'll put myself kind of in that last category too, because just talking to people and looking at the schools and whatnot, you notice the trends. You see that a lot of the administrative roles are Caucasian or white individuals, and like you said, 1 out of 56 is non-white. And you when the numbers came out, I was shocked. I had kind of noticed a trend of the higher positions, head coaches, administration, what have you, were predominantly white. But when you bring out the numbers of 1 of 56, that's less than 2%.
Yeah.
When you see it like that, that's shocking.
That threw me that exact number. And, I guess a bit, even for myself, just a bit naive to not think it was that big of a gap. And, I think one thing the CBC article did do is made everybody ask why, and why is that happening, and what is the difference, which I thought was great, and I still do think that was great.
100%.
And it was important. And when they asked me to be a part of it, I was all over it, and I know Clay, the men's coach, was all over it, and we had good conversations with our athletic director, Tom, at the time, and he's even as recent. There's been conversations about just certain things we can do, and whether it's an exhibition game, with 2 people of color coaches, and that's an annual thing. It's kind of similar. There's some talk about similar to the breast cancer awareness initiative that's awesome that they do.
Right.
Something to just raise a little bit more awareness. But I think most importantly, so someone can look and see and say, hey, that person, it goes to some of the things you've been advocating for, coverage and attention, and say, hey, look, like those guys are doing it. And, what was their path and how did they get there? And I think eventually that 1 out of 56 has to change. That has to change, and that will, again, contribute positively to the ultimate goal of more equality, I think, is the ultimate goal.
And I think a lot of it too, like the CBC article, I don't want to like diminish what it did in any way. I think it was a great first step. And like you said, it made people ask why is this happening? But I think now people have to ask, like, what can we do? And I think the why started, and it was big when the article came out in mid-July. Then you saw a lot of the statements come out from administrations and athletic departments and companies, and really anybody with a social media platform put out a post of saying they're all for equality. They're with everyone in the fight for racial equality. But then it seems like a lot of them stopped there. Yeah. They posted it to save face, like it's a trend, and then they didn't say what can I do, or they just said why, and then here's what we want to do. It's a blanket statement.
Yeah.
And then, okay, the public saw it, now our hands are clean and we're done. It's not how this works. And
and there's so much more that needs to be done, and even if it's not in the forefront, I would hope that universities and administrative are still, supporting some of the initiatives that I know are started and have been. And I will say this, it got started and there was so much momentum, and I felt like, this is going to be major. And like you said, it as fast as it built up, it kind of fell off equally as fast. But I know, like I said, I know some things that I've personally been involved in some conversations that are happening, even just in our conference in the Canada West. Cheryl with Trinity's been a big part of that, and definitely part of some things that are important. So I know some things are happening, but I would agree not enough likely, or not enough in the eyes and the forefront, so people can see what's happening, and it's not gonna change on its own. That's for sure.
No. And it's not going to change overnight either. I don't like, this isn't a social issue that you're going to change in 24 hours. That's not what I'm trying to say. Like, you can't just put yourself out there and then the next day it's gone. But I think as long as you are, whether it's institutional based, if you're offering more services or just outlets, I guess, to have the conversations, whatever it is, big or small, as long as you're offering or working towards that bigger goal at the end of the day, we're going to get better. And you're not, if you go in trying to fix the problem itself right away, it's not going to work.
No.
You should take those little steps and see, because every school is going to be different. Every company is going to have their own issues around it. But collectively, those all work together on their own to get the bigger picture solved, if that made any sense.
No, for sure. And that's why for us, continuing to have conversations as small and as spread out in time as even they are, is important. But at some point we do have to tie it together collectively and, make a joint effort and make some final decisions too. I think, I know for me, there was a lot of great brainstorming and great ideas and from administration to the ground coaches and feedback from players. And obviously things happen, and, it was that fast momentum, and then, there's a lot of ideas still there, but no action. Now, part of it too, with no season happening, I think that slowed some of the things that were talked about down, but we do have to keep it going. And like I said, being for myself, just personally being present and inviting those conversations and inviting, people to talk about it. And even in our own community, when we run a junior heat program and, we have people of color in our junior heat program, and making sure that they know that they are going to have the same opportunities, and whether it's post-secondary basketball, but to move on and be coaches. And it's a little different now. I think a lot of players think about, coaching and giving back a lot sooner than certainly in my playing days when I was 15, 16 years old.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily thinking about doing what I'm doing right now.
No.
That part's different. So we, like you said, those small things will add up, and hopefully we can keep the conversation going and see some change sooner than later. I don't want to put a date on it, but sooner than later.
Yes, much, much sooner than later. And I think one more thing on that before we move on, I think people in like my shoes, like white males, white females who cannot even fathom a thought of what the oppression's been like and the inequality. And if they say they know, they have no clue. But we can't be afraid to ask because we don't know. And I'll be the first to admit, I have no idea what it feels like to apply for a job with the same credentials or better, like in coaching, than to see the numbers of 1 of 56 ADs and 10% of coaches. Like it comes back to that uncomfort thing. If you need to kind of get away from the uncomfortable, but the uncomfortable is also good because that's how you learn.
Yes.
If you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to have these conversations, that's how you're going to learn and grow. Because if you don't talk about it, you're just part of the problem because you're pushing it to the back burner, let someone else deal with it. When it comes to you, if you're in a situation, you don't know how to deal with it or how you should deal with it or how you should approach a situation, could make it worse.
Absolutely. And I think if there's any one message that I would want people to hear, it would be that is don't be afraid to have the conversation. It's always going to be uncomfortable. It's always going to be a bit awkward. And, I think it's easy to not. It's easy to, like you said, push it away and move on and or joke about it and not necessarily take it serious because you're a little uncomfortable with it. But to learn and grow, please have the conversation and ask the questions. And I think I can only speak for myself. That's how I want it to happen. Want it to be. And I invite those uncomfortable conversations for sure.
And I think like some of the uncomfort comes from, I think people don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to mess up. They don't want to do the wrong thing. And we're all going to make a mistake along the road. I think it's human nature that you make mistakes along the way. But if you're having these conversations, you can understand kind of where your mistakes were a mistake, kind of where you went wrong. You can say what you were thinking, then you can hear why that was wrong or otherwise, and then understand, and then you learn for next time. If you don't have these conversations, you keep making the same mistakes, it's not going to fix itself, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of those small problems that you make your own small progress, and then ultimately it kind of, whenever it comes, sooner than later, it'll all meet in the middle, and we'll be much better for it. Fingers crossed.
That is the ultimate goal. We need to be.
Because it's long overdue. And it's like, way too long. That's all I can say on that.
Yeah, no, I understand for sure.
Looking at your coaching career, you kind of touched on it now with you weren't really thinking about coaching when you were playing at 15 or 16.
No.
When did you know coaching was what you wanted to do?
So I'll try to give you the short version, but it's kind of an interesting story.
Okay.
I didn't really know probably 2005, 2006, to be honest. And I was coaching for a few years at that point.
Okay.
I had moved to the Okanagan. I was selling real estate at the time. I was very happy selling real estate. I loved my job. A coworker said, I was playing basketball. People knew I played basketball, liked basketball. I'd done some coaching prior to, so my coworker knew this. He said, "Hey, my daughter's their team's looking for a coach. They need some help. Would you be interested?" And I said, no, I'm not interested. Not something I want to do. This was around 2003. And to his credit, he was relentless. Just come and check it out. Just come. They need somebody.
Yeah.
So finally, I gave in. Yeah, okay, I'll go. I'll go in. I'm sitting on one practice. I had coached boys up until this point, so I had zero experience coaching girls basketball.
Right.
And this is at Vernon Secondary here in Vernon. So I went, and a gentleman by the name of Malcolm Reed is the head coach of this Vernon Secondary team. Side note, his brother's Angus Reed, the CFL or ex-CFL player.
Okay.
And so I go in and I meet him, and he's intense. And I'm thinking, this is grade 11, grade 12, I believe at the time, high school girls basketball. And this guy's got a practice plan. He's, okay. So he said, hey, just sit here, just get familiar, take some notes, whatever you can tell me after. And I knew about 10 minutes in, I was like, this is different than what I thought. Like they were, the players themselves were so engaged and, wanted to be there and listening, and the team concept was there, and a lot of things that I really believe in. So I left there, I phoned him, I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll help out. So the plan was for me to be an assistant coach for a while and just kind of help out and be around when I could. But I didn't know any different, and I started really enjoying it. I'm like, I'm going to be here every day. Forget it. I wasn't thinking long-term that I wanted to be a head coach at the university at this point, but this was pretty fun is what I was thinking.
Right.
Enjoying it, and they're passionate. So the end, that season comes and goes. He calls me into his office. He says, well, I got transferred, so you're going to be it's your team now. I said, what? No. What? So,
it's not what I signed up for.
No. And fortunately, they had a gentleman there who's actually on our women's staff, Lonnie Mazarak, who came and we kind of coached together because I was certainly not ready to take over this team. About 2 years coaching with him, I remember sitting there and we're making a Okanagan Valley championship run, and we got a good team and a couple players that actually went on and played post-secondary. And it was kind of that point I knew that I wanted to do this more than volunteer and kind of just at the high school level. Right. At the same time, there was a void in the Okanagan for club basketball. At that time in 04, 05, there was no club basketball in the Okanagan. There was nothing. Right. And I had a couple players from our high school team that tried out for the provincial team, didn't make it. So they came back and they said, hey, coach, we hear there's a club tournament. Could we enter it? Could we get some players and enter it? So I said, kind of half-heartedly, hey, you find 7 or 8 more players and I'll coach it and we'll go there. They phoned me the next day. We got our team, coach. Okay. So there I was now coaching a club team. Right. And now I started that was the beginning of coaching all year round. And what that did is it got me kind of exposed to, I saw university coaches scouting players. I began having conversations with university coaches and really kind of getting a feel for it. And I would say at that point, I kind of knew this is what I wanted to do. I didn't feel like I was ready, if I'm being perfectly honest. I wasn't out there applying for jobs and I was keeping my ears and eyes open and I started to network with post-secondary coaches and we had a good program, high school program. So a lot of our players were moving on, or a good chunk of our players were moving on to post-secondary. And I began to follow that process and that recruiting process and meeting those coaches or emailing or texting and phoning with those university coaches. And I could just feel inside that, hey, I think I could be good at this. I think I want to do this and I wanted to try. And, I was loving the Okanagan. I wasn't ready to apply and move anywhere. So I was just really focused on learning and kind of trying to figure out the intricacies. I started going to some college and basketball games just as a fan and watching and really, I have to admit, it was probably pretty quick that in my mind, I didn't share it with a whole lot of people. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. Didn't have a plan. Didn't know how. I'd be lying if I said I had a long term, but I knew I wanted to do it. Right. My only real goal was to gather as much information and knowledge while I was coaching at the high school level as I could, and wait for, I don't want to say the perfect opportunity, but wait for an opportunity. And I think it was around, I want to say 2009, 2010, I started to just, throw my name. I applied for a couple of jobs, knowing I'm probably not getting a phone call or, not getting past the phone call interview at the very least. And didn't get first couple of times. I didn't get a sniff, which I was not looking for.
Right.
But I just wanted to kind of see what this process was. And again, experience and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I took the path that's less traveled these days. And, was kind of old school about it. And so at this point, the club program that I'd been running,
right,
UBCO had started up a junior heat club program.
Okay.
And Heather Semenick was the head coach of UBCO at the time, and she approached and said, "Hey, why don't we join and you can run our junior heat program?" And we have, instead of having 2 club programs 30 minutes away, let's make one club program and
okay,
kind of combine it. So we did, and I thought it was, being 100% honest, I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for me. I get, be around a head coach and be in the university a little bit. Again, not thinking this was going to be my landing spot, but knowledge and information, and really liked the junior heat concept. And we started to enter a bit more higher competition tournaments and became a bit of a traveling club program. And I was still coaching at the high school level, and we were doing really well, making provincials every year, and semifinals, quarterfinals. So we had a lot of success. It was kind of the perfect storm for me. There was a lot of talented players in the Okanagan.
Right.
I kind of lucked out into this coaching job at Vernon Secondary.
Yeah.
There was a need for junior heat or club basketball. Junior heat started up. I'm doing stuff. It all just, timing is everything, and came together. And at this point, my mind was made up. Hey, I'm going to be a head coach. I had no idea where. Obviously, Heather was, a great person to gain knowledge from and experience. She'd been coaching at this point, 16, 17 years. Yeah. She'd seen it transfer from college to U Sport. So, anytime I could, I was definitely picking her brain and learning. Probably driving her nuts a little bit sometimes, but she never let me know anyway.
Right.
And, that whole period, I guess, is when I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Just seems like it all just kind of fell into place, whether you wanted it to or not. You went into it just to help out. You're a head coach within a year. Yeah. And then, at Vernon, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys did not finish outside of the top 8.
That's correct.
Ever.
Yeah, ever.
And which is impressive, to say the very least, to make at least quarterfinals every year. Yeah. And then you start up your club program, and UBCO is like, hey, let's do the same thing. You can run this for us. Okay, sure. Why not?
Yeah, it sounded perfect.
Here you are now. You were an assistant there for 5 years. Now this would have been your 3rd year as a head coach. It seems like you said, perfect storm. And with no plan at all. You just kind of said, let's see what happens, navigate, and it all kind of worked out. Yeah,
I don't know that I would if someone asked me what's the path, I don't know that I would recommend this necessarily for everybody, but
probably not. No,
but it worked out. And Heather, I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. Heather phones me. So this is after I've been working with junior heat and doing that for a couple of years. A lot of Vernon players at this point, whether I had coached them at the high school level or just in club, a lot of Okanagan players were moving on post-secondary. So Heather phones me and says, hey, would you be interested in being kind of the second assistant with the team? Well, it was just an odd, the answer was yes, but I said, can I think about it? But in my mind, I knew that I wanted to do it.
Right.
But I panicked a little bit because I thought, here's your opportunity. And so I say, can I think about it? She pauses for a second. She's like, yeah, sure. I hang up the phone. I phone my wife. Hey, guess what? The UBCO head coach just asked me to be an assistant. She's like, oh, awesome. Congratulations. I said, yeah, I told her I'd think about it. My wife says, hang up the phone, call her back, and tell her you'll take it. And we'll figure out everything else after that. And, that was kind of the turning point, if you will, of being around and being, now I'm at the level, and I was all in from day one. Heather said, be here when you can. And there was no option. I'm going to be at every single event, practice. I'll be there.
Yeah. I think I'm the same way as you. Like if that was me on that phone call and it was something that I wanted, like it would have been yes regardless. I think it's just one of those nervous reactions.
Totally.
Yeah, like let me call you. I'll think about it. I'll get back to you. And then you hang up the phone and you're like, what did I just say? Like what happened?
Yeah, totally.
And you call your wife or call whoever and you're like, yeah, like, I guess offer this job. Did you take it? Oh, I said I'd call her back. Shut up. Hang up the phone.
Yeah. Pretty much how the conversation went. Mm-hmm. And it was, don't call me back until you've accepted that job. Oh, okay, honey. And glad I did. Glad I did for sure.
Yeah. It's funny how things kind of just work out. It's cliche, but I mean, they work out as they're supposed to, and right place, right time, whatever cliche thing you want to pull out of this. But sometimes, like you said, the road less traveled with not a single plan or no map, no nothing leads you to where you're supposed to be. And you just got to take that risk, and who knows, it could pay off.
Yeah. And like I said, I knew in my mind I wanted to be a head coach, but I just didn't know how I was going to get there or be a coach. I don't think I said head coach. I just knew I wanted to be at that level. And it was timing. It was some people giving me amazing opportunities that, even Malcolm Reed, I kind of laughed because when I got the head coaching job, I reached out to him and thanked him, because I said, really, it all began, that day I'm sitting in the gym watching this, varsity high school team. And, he kind of said, yeah, that was, the door might've been open, but, you kind of took some things and ran with it. And, and I do agree. There was a lot of luck and a lot of right time, right place. And, if there wasn't a need for club basketball and that was already established, maybe I don't get connected with UBCO.
Right.
It was just a lot of good things. And I kind of say I'm always going to be grateful for that road and how it worked out. But, I give different advice to people who ask me about becoming a head coach.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I think everybody kind of has their own separate mindset. They need that different advice, because I think one generic statement may not apply to someone else, because they may not have the connections. They may not have, like you did, kind of just soak up everything that you could. I think you kind of need to tailor that advice to everybody. But I guess kind of on that, I'm going to ask you, if there was one blanket piece of advice you'd give to a coach or a potential player that wanted to be a coach, what would it be?
I think if it was one thing I could give everybody that like you said, blanket advice, is the hard work. Like put in the time. Don't skip steps. I would not trade the 9 years at Vernon. I needed every one of those years. And at Vernon Secondary, and we were a small school getting to provincials yearly and competing with everybody. And I think, the hard work and the process, trusting those things those again sound cliche, but I really believe in that, that you do the work and you trust the process. Good things happen to good people. And I think if you start skipping steps and, trying to be, maybe outside of the box, you might run into some roadblocks, but for me, that would be it. Like put the time in, do the work. When you meet somebody, you don't know who they know or what they like. Treat them with respect and shake their hand. Well, not in these times.
Not now.
Would have been shake their hand and leave a good impression. And I believe in that, and things will work out.
Yeah, I think like pay your dues, like you said, and like don't expect things to just be handed to you, because like it's not gonna work out that way. And the respect thing, I think, is big. It's huge. Like first impressions are everything, but just treat people with respect, be polite, whatever. It's, again, as simple as it sounds, it seems like the simple things kind of get overlooked the most, and they kind of come back to bite people when it comes time to pick one candidate or the other. It's kind of those little things that you kind of overlook that will come back to get you if you don't deal with them at the time.
100%. And I think it's, when you say it is simple and it's easy, but often overlooked.
Yeah, I see young kids today, like even like now with COVID, a lot of it's done by email. Like email etiquette is stressful. I had an email come in 2 days ago that was all in the subject line. Like just little things like that, kind of that first impression again that comes through. You can't change a first impression.
No, it's there. Yeah,
there, or it's either good or you're in trouble, and you're making up for that as long as you go on. And because those don't change, you can't change a first impression. So make it good, make it count.
Yeah, you make it count is right for sure.
If you take nothing else from this, if you made it this far, make your first impression count. You'll be good.
Yes.
Looking now that you were the head coach at UBC, this would have been your third year. The first year you had the interim tag.
Yeah.
What does that do for a coach's mindset? Because I don't think we don't really hear the interim head coach too much in Canadian university or collegiate sports. How did that kind of change your mindset going from one assistant to head coach, but also having that little 7-letter tag ahead of it?
Yeah, it was, I think the first little bit, it weighed on me a bit more in the day-to-day stuff. And at some point I just felt like I got to go in, coach the way I would coach, do the things that I would do. So the day-to-day, after a little bit, it wasn't right away. After a little bit, I just really, when I was with the players and the game planning and everything, basketball-wise, I treated it the same. And we talked about it. We talked about it as a team and just said, whether I'm going to be here next year or not, we're still showcasing what we can do this year.
Right.
And all of us, right? Like if there's a new coach walking in the door, they're going to want to know what you were able to do this year. And if I'm here, we definitely want to know what we're going to be able to do. So we kind of didn't really let it affect too much on the day-to-day grind of preparing for games and practices and all that. Where I certainly would say it affected me was recruiting. When a parent or a player sees interim, the first thing they say is, are you going to be back next year? How do we know you're going to be back? That's where I personally noticed it the most. And I ran into a lot of roadblocks, there. And obviously I was recruiting, Jaeli Ibbetson and Kelsey Falk, 2 local players that I coached in club basketball. I know their families, and it was tough to not know if it's going to be me or not, and what it would look like. And, that was hard. And that's where I noticed it as the season went on the most. I think a lot of people brought it up, when I was, whether I was out recruiting or even talking to some other coaches, it got brought up often, like, hey, how you doing? How's the interim? That's got to be tough. And, I think I put the blinders on day to day. Right. And then there were other areas that, it affected me. I was fortunate. I can't speak for any other coaches that were in this position, but, my athletic director was, he was very clear, and the communication lines were there often. And I knew what I kind of needed to do. And I I knew where I stood. So I think that helped me. There wasn't, it wasn't like he hired me and the interim tag was put on and I didn't speak to him for, 4 or 5 months. It was like, I went out of my way to talk to him and what do I need to do? What are you looking for? And so I think for me, that was kind of a way to handle it. Was to just, let's see what I need to do. But, for anybody that has that tag, the recruiting piece was a challenge. Absolutely. There was no getting around it. There was no avoiding it in the meetings with families or players. Yeah.
That's one part of it I never really considered when I was thinking about kind of your last 2 years coming into it, and kind of like, because when you took over, the team went 0-20 the year before. So that's kind of a hurdle to start with, but I never really thought of the recruiting conversation being like, this is what we're about, yada, yada, yada. Like interim head coach, that comes up. I mean, you ended up getting Jaeli and Kelsey and other recruits to come in. How did you kind of navigate that then in the recruiting process? If you can go into much of it, I want to give away all your secrets on how you get your players. But
I think I was pretty honest. The line I use with every single one of them, and I really believe this, is my plan is to be here. I'm treating us like I'm going to be here, and that's the only way I knew how to do it.
Right.
is to just treat it like I'm going to be here. And
Mm-hmm.
Emily Instant was the first player to commit
Mm-hmm.
for me as an interim head coach. And there was a lot of trust and kind of she took a leap of faith, I guess, if you will, with me. And she certainly had other opportunities and options, at that time. And I remember sitting down with her family, and that was kind of the conversation is I only know this way to do it, that this is my philosophy. This is
Mm-hmm.
the kind of coach I am. Here's my vision. Here are the other players. I was very honest with who I was recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the players that I'm recruiting. And, I kind of said, hey, if we get you, I think I can go, and then it's going to make it easier to, I know certain players want to play with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was committed to her, and she definitely was the first to take the leap of faith. And ironically, it was harder with Jaeli and Kelsey as local players,
Okay.
part because of knowing their families, and they've been around the program, and
Right.
they were pretty highly recruited.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I knew I was in a few battles there. And so I think it was tough because I didn't want to let any of them down, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to not be there. And I'm telling them that my plan is to be there. And I also put some trust in UBCO that if I wasn't there, that these players that did commit,
Mm-hmm.
they were going to take care of. And that was certainly conversations that I had with my athletic director is,
Right.
I don't want, I don't think it would be fair to them to commit to, whether it be scholarship wise
Mm-hmm.
and kind of, sure, the other coach is going to have a different vision and maybe different roles and things for those players, but
Mm-hmm.
give them the opportunity.
Right.
And that was it. And I was very open and upfront and didn't hide any facts that, yes, I could not be here, but
Right.
my plan is to be here. And, obviously, it kind of got announced in March, right before the basketball provincials, I believe, that
Right.
the interim tag was taken off. That really helped recruiting because
Mm-hmm.
now at that point I had signed Jaeli, I had signed Kelsey, Emily had signed pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to pick up some momentum after that
Right.
announcement, and I was on my way. So it happened, I think, the day before, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving down to the basketball provincials to do some scouting, and I was going regardless. And the announcement got put out, and so my phone all of a sudden is lit up with congrats,
Right.
and I kind of knew that was going to give me a bit of momentum going down to the BCs to not have to answer that question, and it helped with a couple of recruits down there for sure.
It's another one of those perfect storms.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
news breaks. Next day's provincials. You no longer have to say interim. It is, I am the head coach of UBCO. Yeah. This is why you should come here, and you get into the whole spiel. But I think being just like a straight shooter, like you said, like just this is how it is. This is my plan. I plan to be here. I think once you say my plan, like I hope to be here, I don't know, it's out of my control, then that kind of wavers that.
Absolutely.
But if they see, at least in my opinion, if they see that you're committed, like I'm going to be here next year, my plan's to be here, it's a little bit easier for them to buy in and kind of believe what you're trying to sell them on. Whereas if you say, I might be, I don't know, but then you try to sell them anyways, they're like, well, why would I take this? Why would I buy into this if you aren't even sure?
And I didn't want to leave any doubt that I was confident and that I was confident in what I was doing. And obviously we were in a season and the win total isn't racking up. Right. So there was that to combat. So you're an interim coach, at the time I'm trying to heavily close some top recruits. We didn't have a win on the board. So there was a lot of, I think a lot of elements of that I could have allowed doubt to creep into these families' minds. And, as a parent, I think I'm not sending my kid to a coach that doesn't sound sure and confident and believes in what he's doing or she's doing. And, I definitely wanted to, and I truly did. I still do. And I believed in the plan and I believed in the recruits that we were signing and what the future was going to be and our style of basketball that we've shifted towards. So that part was pretty easy for me to commit to. And then obviously not saying things like, I might be here, or I hope I'm back, or, I sure wish I am, was important in the language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as soon as you have that little bit of doubt kind of in yourself, if you're going to be back, there's no chance that these players are going to buy in until they know for sure. And I think it was March 1 that it was announced. Like that's a bit late in kind of that high school recruiting, because you're relying on provincials now and you're behind the 8 ball. So
absolutely,
you just go in if you're sure, and if you're not, then trust UBCO. But it kind of paid off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking at the last 3 years for you guys, you took over a team that was 0-20. You went 1-19 and then 2-20 or 2-18.
Yeah.
But I think last year as well, you guys had the strong preseason, went 7-2. So really, it was 9-20.
Yeah.
So which I think looks to me sounds a lot better than 2-18. How has the program kind of developed? Have you seen them grow? Well, even as you're 5 years as an assistant to where they are now, kind of have you seen that the program grow over the years, and kind of what did that exhibition run last year kind of do for the team's confidence going forward, even if the regular season results weren't necessarily there?
Yeah, I think the biggest growth that I've seen and really tried to put forward is our culture belief. And obviously wins and losses are important, and I'm not going to sit here and say, you can survive at this level on moral victories, because that's not what we're about. And wins and losses are important, but we really talked a lot. Kind of my second year as the head coach, I think that's when, because that first year taking over, there was a lot of other dynamics. I'm trying to put my stamp on it. I'm trying to do some things, but obviously I brought in a lot of players over the last couple of years. So the style and stuff was changing when those players came in. But we talked a lot about having pride and being prideful. And every time we step on the floor, because I think it's easy to look at the records, and I think it's easy for people to say, hey, it's not a winning program. And, they're 2 years removed from an 0-20 season. And that's very easy to say. And what happened, and at no fault of anyone's, is there was just this belief in our program as well. This is who we are. This is we're not a winning program, and if we get a win here and there, great. So I think the first thing we tried to do as a coaching staff was change that mindset. And we talk about winning all the time, and we talk about winning in the classroom. We talk about being the leaders of the varsity teams in our school, and we talk about winning in the community, and then we talk about winning on the court and the things that it's going to take. And I think year 2, we saw these glimpses and these moments that were very small, and it was easy to overlook. And when we sat back as a team and kind of reflected, coaching staff and then to the players, we started to tell them, and you could see in their faces, like, oh, hey, yeah, that's true. And the start in the preseason last year, the 7-2 start, that was awesome, because it validated some of the things we had talked about in preseason and off season. We changed what we did in the off season. We added a mini camp in July where we all came together, and we were doing things that I quote unquote, like the winning programs would do that. So why would we do that? We are a winning program. We're going to get there. And I think those wins were great, and we had kind of a funny road to a couple of them. We were down lots and came back and won a game. We won a game in overtime, and we won back-to-back games, which was something UBCO hadn't done in a long time, preseason, regular season, right? So even that built a lot of momentum, and we had a lot of confidence. And people think I'm crazy a little bit, but we had a lot of confidence going into Manitoba week 1, and no disrespect to any of the coaches. Obviously, I have a ton of respect for them, but we believed in our mind we were going there to win. We were going there to split was like the only option. And then Friday night happened, and we didn't win, and we were down big early, and it was tough. It was a tough one, and to see the difference Saturday, and I think we lost by 1 or 2 on the Saturday, and had a great game in terms of game plan and execution. I think that was the moment that the belief was really, it wasn't just words anymore, and we really believed that. We come home and we get TRU, we get a win. It was the earliest win that the team had in regular season in a long time. And that was important too. And we talked about that as a team. The longer your season goes without a win, the further away that seems,
Right.
And so to beat TRU, it was like, okay, that's done. We got that done. And then obviously Saturday we didn't win. Jaeli had broke her hand in that game. So we knew we were going to be without her for a long time, or at the time I actually thought for the season. We thought her season was done.
Right.
So that was tough, and I was really proud of the group because mentally we overcame that, and we kind of battled through, and we had a couple of good leaders that knew we were going to be missing a big piece, but obviously said, hey, we can't stop here.
Right.
But it was a bumpy road, and we didn't get a win for a while. And I think the thing that, if I could sum it up, the thing that changed the most was we never kind of got away from the culture piece, and we still were going to be, we kind of developed we call it the heat way. And it's hard work, effort, accountability, and a team first mindset. And that's kind of the heat way. And we established that kind of when we were facing some adversity, because going into the preseason, we'd already lost Brianna Falk to a torn ACL. Then Emily Instant tears her ACL. Jaeli Ibbetson breaks her hand. So we weren't 2.5 months into the season, and 3 of who we thought were going to be our top 8 are out for long, like 2 season-ending injuries. So I thought it was, really impressive that we didn't implode. We didn't turn on each other. We didn't and to me and to our coaching staff and to the players, and especially the returning players, that was a winning attitude. We were winning. And I know we weren't winning games, but we were winning. And, we battled hard. And one of the things we talked about is we just didn't want to be a, kind of check mark on other teams' calendar. Hey, we got UBCO coming in. Okay, let's look at that next weekend. And we want them to know they're in a game. And we felt like we did that for good stretches. And it wasn't smooth. But the culture and our mindset didn't change, and we were going to stick to that heat way, and we still held each other accountable, and we still worked extremely hard, and we put the team ahead of everything. And on the sidelines, what everybody didn't see all last year is how hard 2 players that suffered season-ending injuries were working, how hard Jaeli was working to get back, and I think that you can look at the 2-18 or the 7-2 and go, oh, that's what it was, but it was way more than that. And to me, we turned a big corner to our team and players that are back. We turned a big corner, and we that all came together against Victoria on a Saturday night. When we got that win, we kind of almost had enough, if you will, of people feeling sorry for us, and it was interesting, and people they had good intentions, but we were kind of done with hearing, how are you hanging in there? And we didn't want the woe was me. We didn't want people to feel bad for us, and we kind of started pushing it away, and I don't want to say took offense to it, but it bothered us, and it kind of built a chip on our shoulder, and we really took a lot of momentum from that Victoria weekend through the rest of the year, and we didn't get a win. But the games against Alberta, a game against UNBC, a game against Winnipeg, these were games that we were in the game, and we knew we were a little bit shorthanded. So for us, it was culture, and we were just going to hammer home culture and change our mindset. Was not going to be a losing mindset. We were going to be winners, and we're still preaching that, and we still talk about that. And so that was kind of, I think for me in the last couple of years, that was the big piece that we wanted to change, and then we wanted to go beyond us. And when my time's done, we wanted them to talk about, hey, that culture was built there, and when these players are gone, they're handing off this culture torch, if you will, to the group coming in. And when you come to UBCO, this is how you play, this is what's expected. And I think before, it just didn't seem like the expectations all the time were of that. And it was almost like, oh yeah, we'll come in and I'm playing post-secondary, but we want to win. We want to go to playoffs. We want to get to nationals. We want to, do those things. So yeah, culture was a big part of it.
I think it's easy from like people on the outside to see the records and be like you said, oh, it's a losing program. Okay. Like, are you guys hanging in okay? And it's easy for them to kind of project that, like almost like feel bad mindset onto you guys when you look inside the program, like you said, with the culture, building that up. Again, that's not going to be built overnight. That's going to take 1 year, 2 year, pretty much every year you're building on it, trying to instill it in the new people and the new players. And you also look at, there's other ways to be classified as a winning program, like you said, in the classroom, in the community, in the school itself. All of those things, I think, kind of will ultimately lead to those wins on the court. Because if you build the culture, you build that mindset of we are a winning program, the wins and losses may say otherwise to outside people. To me, that's really all background noise. Then as long as you guys and girls see yourselves like we're a winning program, the results aren't there. We've come up on the wrong side more often than not, but you have close games against Alberta. You have close games against UNBC, Winnipeg, all of whom are top half teams in the conference. Those are small wins that you can build off of, because you look at where you were 2 years ago with no wins to where you are now with 2 and competing against these teams that go to nationals and compete for titles. That does wonders for confidence. And to hear that you guys kind of used that background, kind of the pity party, I guess, that people hosted for you that you didn't want or need, you took it. If you really did kind of take offense to it in a good way and be like, okay, like we're going to use this and we're going to kind of play angry, and you pulled off a win against a good Vic team. So, I mean, it's all kind of background noise, but at the same time, it kind of does fuel that fire. But it's easy for people on the outside to just write off a program and say, they're not a winning program, when you're doing other things that are wins and that go far beyond a record on a website.
Absolutely. And that was a big part of it. Just what you said, there's stuff that we're doing that's going to be important within our community. Like, having 7 academic All-Canadians on our program last year, like nobody's talking about that.
Nope.
They come back to the website record. Even our schedule, you look at our schedule, how many other teams played Calgary, Alberta, Sask, UBC, Vic in the single year. And I know our schedule it's changed, every year it changes in the Canada West a little bit, but that was our schedule.
That's a tough schedule last year too. I remember looking at that and I was like, this is not easy.
No, and
for anybody.
Anybody, exactly. And we kind of embraced it, and we never want injuries and we don't want people out of our lineup, but obviously that happened. And, I think what really got to us a little bit is, second semester we're coming back and a couple people made comments to us like, I bet you just can't wait for the season to get over and just get out of this. This is a nightmare. And, we were pissed off about that. And we actually, kind of had a little message on our board in our locker room about that. And kind of said, hey, everybody's thinking our season's over, right? Like, why are we here? And it was awesome to see how we responded. And we knew with some of the players we recruited, and we were, another thing is how young we are. Our first years last year, we're doing things that if they were on any other program, they would be getting national attention, and we were a little bothered by that, and Jordan Korol, I know we'll talk about her after, but you look at her numbers the last couple of years, she's one of the top forwards out there, but not a whole lot of attention and
not a thing.
No, and we kind of built around that, and Jaeli, she was on record-breaking pace, and then came back and picked up right where she left off at this tough schedule. And the same thing, not a whole lot of talk and conversation. And she did get recognized as Canada West all-rookie team, and we really appreciate that. But we kind of took all of that and said, hey, they're going to know who we are, and they're going to know who these first years are at some point, and we're pretty committed to it. And I think that culture, and if you were around our team today and this year, our model is let's win the COVID season. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what it looks like, but we're going to win it. We're going to come out better, and that we know what the perception is, and we accept that the wins and losses aren't there, and that's ultimately how we're going to change the perception. But we don't have to feel that way about ourselves, and we certainly don't feel that way. And in our locker room and in our practices and stuff, we have a lot of pride now, and I think we're a bit of we're a growing team. I mean, even Kelsey Falk, now a second-year player, her numbers of 8 rebounds and 8 points a game as of first year were pretty good, and nobody talks about her, nobody mentions her, and so we take that and use it as some motivation that we want people to know who these names and know who they are, and know that UBCO is a program that's not a check mark on anybody's calendar moving forward.
Right. And I think like with Jordan and Jaeli and their stats, I think that's a big issue too with the national media, which we'll get into after as well, with nothing really. And a lot, like you get stat lines like this, like Jaeli, her first weekend, she had 21 and 17 against Manitoba. You'd be hard pressed to hear anything probably outside of UBCO about it.
Yeah.
And you look, like you mentioned her records too, like she led all U Sports rookies, not even Canada West, U Sports rookies with 10.2 rebounds. She led U Sports with over 5 offensive rebounds a game. You didn't hear a thing until she was a Canada West all rookie team member, which great at the end of the year, but where was the attention for the 20 games of the season, minus when she was hurt? But at the same time, like where was the noise?
For the first 4 weeks, I believe she was leading, maybe don't quote me on this, but pretty close to leading the country in points and rebounds. She was in the top 2 or 3, and not a thing. Nothing. You put those numbers on any other team, and they're going to get a little bit more than what she got. And kudos to her. She comes out and does it, and doesn't and don't get me wrong, she knows nobody's talking about her, but when you ask the coaches that play against her, they certainly know she is, and she's on the scout sheet. That's for sure.
And I think that too, like that's a testament to like you and the staff and the culture you guys have built, that she knows what she can do. She knows that people aren't talking about her, but she's still playing for the name on the front. Doesn't play for the name on the back. Like it's all the team first culture that you guys have built, and the Heat way. And I think I'm probably willing to bet she'd trade any individual accolades for a team championship or what have you. But I mean, when you have those stats and don't get the attention, that's got to be a bit frustrating after a while.
It stings, and it's funny because she wants the attention, and as do a number of players on the team. So UBCO gets the attention. So people start talking about UBCO. Because you know how that works. You talk about Jaeli Ibbetson playing for UBCO. That's what she wants, and that's what she wants to. A lot of them do. You look at this team right now, and we don't get to play, obviously, and we're not going to see a whole lot this year. But that's what they want. They want people to talk about it, and not the pity party or the losing program, right? So, and she's done remarkable things. A lot of the players have it in the last couple of years. Have done some things. So. I think you're gonna hear a lot of that in the future. I hope.
And hopefully I'll do more on my part. I'll apologize for my lack of attention thrown that way this year. That. I will own up to my deficiencies, which I have a lot of apparently. But that's okay. She is a junior Heat member as well, so you've kind of seen her coming up through the system.
Yeah.
How, in your opinion, how good do you think she can be? With what she did as a first-year player to having another 4 years left, with this year essentially being a free year, how good do you think she can be?
It's funny because when I coached her in junior Heat, I remember thinking I had her for 2 summers. So I didn't – the summers are pretty compact, but we got involved in playing against like the junior Huskies, junior We call it the Pebble. It's called the Pebble League out here,
Okay.
Prairie Elite Basketball League, and so they're all attached to universities.
Right.
And we got playing them, and there's a lot of good players in there. And I will say this about Jaeli, and she hears this, she would agree. She's not going to get you any style points. Like if you're looking for a player that, a lot of times you look and you're like how did she get to 20 and 17, right?
Yeah.
But I saw her motor, and it's relentless. There's not too many players that I've been around in all of my time coaching that have this motor. And because of that motor, I think her ceiling is unlimited. She's still developing parts of her game right now.
Okay. Yeah.
She's not a complete player, and she knows that, and she works hard.
Right.
She didn't miss when we could open the gym in the summer. She didn't miss a day. She's there. She does miss a workout. To give you a perspective of Jaeli, we had a tough practice, to my thought anyway, at the end midweek last week. A lot of compete drills. We were up and down the floor lots. I look over at the end of practice. She's doing a 17 on the sideline, and I said, "Well, what?" Like, I go to the trainer. What is she doing? Oh, she didn't feel like she got enough cardio today, so she wants to do more. Nobody told her to do that. So for me, when you say what's her her ceiling is just kind of endless, with that motor, and what she does and how she plays. I would really, I can confidently say, she's going to be a Canada West All-Star. She's going to be talked about in that light. And she does it. What you see and what people hear about in games, that's in practice. We see that all the time. I was asked last year, how excited are you to see that from Jaeli? And I said, well, I see it 4 days a week. And you know what? It's pretty disruptive in practice. It drives me nuts a little bit sometimes, but that's who she is. So,
right.
Yeah. And she loves playing for her teammates. And you said it perfectly. She would go 2 points and 2 rebounds if we're winning the game, right? But probably not winning the game with her going 2 and 2.
Probably not. No, not quite. You've got to have a different motor if you feel like you don't get enough cardio in a practice. Like if you're willing to run more, like I remember when I played sports, like that was the worst part. Yes. Cardio is not fun.
No.
And she did more.
Yeah. She reaches out to the trainer. Hey, can you come time this? I want to get 17 sidelines in a minute. And she gets it after a 2-hour practice. No one else is doing it. Nobody told her to do it. And I kind of just, okay, you leave her to do those things.
Yeah. If she wants to run more, that's going to be good though, for then like younger players coming in to kind of see her have that mindset already as a first year player to be willing to do whatever it takes to be successful, even if it means running more and you didn't get enough cardio in a practice, which I won't like. That still baffles me. Like there's all cardio is enough.
Hard practice. Like we were going pretty good. Like I would have never thought anyone saying, "Hey, I got to do a 17 to up the cardio after that practice." I was like, okay, but that's the difference. That's the motor that she has, and I knew that in junior heat. It's nothing I coached or I can't take credit for it at all. It's a DNA thing. And, she came with that. And what it does is it makes everybody in our practices and when we're doing things, you just see it without saying a word, holds everybody accountable.
Yeah. That's like people see that as kind of the benchmark. And if they see a player of her caliber already kind of doing that extra stuff, they want to kind of hopefully practice to her level, because nobody, again, coming back to COVID, nobody wants to be the school that closes everybody down. Nobody wants to be that one player that doesn't meet the benchmark in practice and kind of hold everybody back. So as a first year player to kind of do that already and set herself apart in that sense with 4 years left, I mean, my goodness, who knows what she could do with that motor. And like you said, she's not flashy. She just goes about her business. She knows what she can do. And before you know it, she has a quiet 21 and 17. And you wonder, how the hell did this happen?
And then I think she followed that up with a 20 and 14. Like it was, the first week was I remember we were heading home and getting back into town, and coaches were just kind of talking, and we're like, I don't know too many rookies that come out. And Manitoba was a good team. This was a good consistently playoff team on the road in their gym.
Yep.
It wasn't the setting wasn't perfect for that to happen, and and it's interesting because of how well she played. Some other first years that actually had good years is they get overshadowed because of how impressive and how much she did in 12. Keep in mind, missed 8 games, coming off of a broken hand second semester. Everybody thought, well, she's certainly going to drop off. In her first weekends against Alberta, certainly going to be a drop off. I think in one of the games she had 15 in the first half. So it was just like no drop off. She was tired. She admitted to being tired after that game, though.
Wow. I based on what you've said so far, I didn't know if she knew what that word was.
Yeah, she did admit that after.
Interesting. Okay. But I mean, yeah, as a first-year player to go out and do 21-17 on your first weekend and then come back from an injury and you do 15 in the first half, like that's just another level that you can't teach. The motor she has, you can either have it or you don't, and it separates kind of the good from the potentially great players.
Absolutely.
We've got to talk about Jordan Korol as well.
Yes.
Another junior Heat player that's come up through the system, was a 5-year player at UBCO, started 90 of 100 games over her career. I think she started like 40 or 58 of the 60 in her final 3 years. So a regular fixture in the starting 5. Touched on her numbers before. One of the probably more underrated forwards in the Canada West. Didn't get nearly the love she deserved. Just kind of your thoughts on her overall, kind of what she's meant to the program, just really whatever you want to say on her, I think would bring her more attention that she should have had during her career, to be honest.
Yeah, Jordan was special. I mean, again, coaching her in junior heat, saw a little bit of it. I can't say, I saw what was coming and how good she was going to be. She's a very quiet personality, very quiet player. But her impact on the court, and more importantly off the court with this team, she'll be remembered forever. The numbers speak for themselves. But when you talk about holding people accountable, she did that day in and day out. Like the weight room, she was just everything she did. It was at that highest level. And, we were kind of fortunate. I should say I was very fortunate, inheriting and like in her final 2 years, 3 years, having her, she had just figured out everything that she needed to do and how she was going to play. And, I think we might list her at 6 feet. She's 5'10", 5'11". She's an undersized forward, playing against everybody in a conference that has a lot of big forwards and centers. Night in and night, like I say to young players and players that I'm recruiting, the easiest players to coach are consistent players. She was the most consistent player. I think she had a game this past year, preseason or regular season. She broke 20 rebounds in a game multiple times.
I remember that.
And it was awesome. But I told people, I didn't even, like, you kind of knew 10 and 10. Like, it didn't matter who we were playing, didn't matter the game script, it didn't matter about anything. And her last 2 years, she really said, hey, I want people to know about UBCO. And her and Anna Evans were 2 players that really developed the Heat way. And Anna kind of came up with the Heat way, and Jordan was the perfect example of someone who's lived it before it was even the words were there. She was already doing that. And I think Jordan left an impression on all of our first years that have come through last year. I think Jaeli and Kelsey played a lot last year with Jordan on the floor, and just seeing her day to day. Like, she was so consistent, like practices, games. She was an academic All-Canadian. Like, she is the staple of a student athlete. And I think for me, it's something that I'll be motivated for. Like, I really wanted her to, we talked about it going into last year. She had earned everything, all the respect, but we wanted her to taste playoffs or be in the running in late in the season and have that kind of be her, final year. And, we saw it as the season developed, that wasn't going to happen. And kudos to her. She never wavered. She never thought about packing it in and came out there and every day, day in and day out was our leader. Like, there was no question. Again, interestingly enough, not someone who says a ton, but does it by example. And when she does speak up and say stuff, I think coaches included, we all kind of sit up a little more and listen because, she was it. And she was tough. She didn't let, nobody take advantage of her teammates or push teammates around. She was quick to back teammates up. A pleasure to coach. Will be missed, but left. We kind of called her the face of the program over the last few years, and I really believe that. And like you talked about, the numbers are there. Like, the numbers just don't lie. And I really hoped. We knew we had to get some wins this year to potentially get her name as a Canada West All-Star. Even though the numbers are equal to some of the players on that list, we knew the number one thing that is often looked at is wins and losses. And so when we were kind of behind the 8 ball for that, we knew that was one of the things that likely wasn't going to happen. And, she kind of, one of her parting ways is she kind of said, get the wins so players can get recognized. She really, again, wants the name and the program, but the individual stuff does matter a little bit. And it was important to her. And we didn't ultimately accomplish that. But I can't say enough good things. And, she was just a pleasure to coach.
You look at the kind of like, I think that's one of the things, like having her, like you said, with the heat wave, like she's like that perfect embodiment of what it takes to be, like, do things the heat way. Like you said, the hard work, like lead by example, not overly vocal from what I gather, but I bet when she speaks up, like, people listen because usually lets her play kind of speak for itself. And then when she has to vocalize something, you pay attention.
Yes,
I think,
for sure.
I think for you guys, I'm probably willing to bet that having Jaeli as a first year have a year to play with a player like Jordan is another one of those perfect storm moments, because she can see what a consistent player like Jordan does on a day-to-day basis, and both can kind of relate to one another now with the lack of attention they got. I think Jordan for her whole career, and then Jaeli now. Hopefully Jaeli's career has a bit of a different trajectory when it comes to the attention for herself and the program. But I think that's got to be like a perfect storm moment to have Jordan as a fifth year, established, consistent, steady as they come player, play with the person like Jaeli, who has, like you said, an undeniable ceiling of what she can do. To have them play together, I think, is a good send-off for Jordan and a good introduction to Jaeli to see what it takes to compete at the Canada West level.
Absolutely. And we talked about it a little bit as coaching staff, like, hey, how neat is this going to be? Now, nobody on the coaching staff said Jaeli's going to go in 21-17 in her first night. Like, none of us were talking about that. But we did talk about, them two playing together. They have a similar path. They both played junior heat. Kind of undersized. Jaeli's a true 6-footer, but always kind of played, forward her whole career. We were kind of giving her more freedom to play that 3-4 and adding some things to her kind of skill set early on. Jordan always played, back to the basket, high post, short corner stuff. And, it was interesting watching them, they're kind of both very similar. Don't say a whole lot, pretty quiet, work hard. Their presence is felt every single moment,
right?
Saying a whole lot, and watching them battle a little bit, and watching and these little conversations Jordan would have with Jaeli or some of the other rookies, and they were quiet conversations, but Jordan was really willing to give any tip or secret or hey, this works, this didn't work, and there were certain games where I think Jordan probably helped a couple of the first years prepare more so than even coaching staff, because a player has a feel for what somebody does, and Jordan played against that player for 4 years or 3 years or 5 years, and you could see pregame or practice before or the morning shoot, Jordan's going, hey, she's going to do this right here. When she does this is what it means. And seeing Jaeli or Kelsey or some of the other young players process that and then apply it in the game, I think that's invaluable when you're moving to a young, like we're a very young team, and knowing that we weren't going to have any fifth years this year and going to be as young a team as there is, was awesome to see Jordan kind of do that. And again, she didn't need the limelight of standing up in front of the team and doing all that, but she'd quietly pull somebody aside and give them some great information and insight. And like I said, Jordan competed at a high level against everybody she played against. There was nothing really seemed to phase her. And I hope that she's passed that along to our group as much as possible.
I looked up her stats kind of as you were talking there about her. In her second last weekend against Winnipeg, she had 23 rebounds and then 18 the next night. 41 rebounds in 2 days. And she's going to give you 12 and 10, 13 and 11, whatever. Go for 23 and 18 on back-to-back nights. that's no slouch.
No, and that's
by any means
against, again, a good team that's playoff bound. And it was so, we just saw it. And I think for her, she didn't go into a game going, hey, I'm going to go get 23 rebounds. She wasn't that kind of person, but she knew that that's going to be important for us to have a chance to win or put us in position. And, she did it. And again, it was no secret. Everybody knew we were going through Korol a little bit and things like that. So, we weren't sneaking up on anybody, especially by then. I think Winnipeg, second or third last weekend of the year. So that was the weekend I remember when you say that 23 and 18, I'm like, who else is doing that, back to back? And it's impressive.
And like you said, people know that you're going through Jordan, and no matter what people throw at her, she's coming out with 13 and 10, 12 and whatever. No matter what they throw at her, it's consistent every week. It's going to be within 8 to 13 rebounds and within 8 to 13 points. And it's no matter what you do, it's consistent every week. You know what you're getting. You can try and stop it, but she's going to do it anyways. Do what you need to, but she's still going to get her 13 and 10, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else you want to add on the team that you've got coming this year, the development over the years, before we get into the last couple and wrap it up and let you go?
I just want to reiterate the excitement that we have. We're young. We've got a couple of recruits that have come in and already shown that they're going to be able to contribute pretty quickly, and I would say right away. And I guess to finish up with our team, I think when we look back on this interview or this year and things like that, we really genuinely believe that we're someone that's going to be competing, and this group wants to get it done, and we feel good about that, and we feel confident about that, and we're not looking by anybody, because the Canada West is tough, and it's hard to win in the Canada West. It's hard to win anywhere, and we get that. But I think the message we definitely want to get across is we're a prideful team, and we're hungry, and we're coming, right? And we want to be there.
And I noticed too, you guys have a total of 6 junior Heat players on the roster this year, so a lot of familiarity with one another and kind of with you and that Heat way already. So I think that just all kind of plays into that. We're here, we're ready to compete. We're not going to have a pity party. If you want to have it for us, we're not coming. We're just going to go about it and do our own thing and kind of use it to fuel, but we're coming ready to compete.
Yeah, that's it. Bang on.
One question came in on Instagram kind of after we had the topics kind of ironed out. Centers around kind of why you got into coaching, but focuses on why you love coaching. Actually, that was the question. Why do you love coaching?
Building the relationships, honestly, and I really enjoy the process. And I think that's what university basketball, don't get me wrong, high school basketball, there's, at VSS or Vernon Secondary, we didn't have a whole lot of tryouts or things like that. And I really like building a team, and I love building these connections and relationships that go beyond basketball. I have a good relationships with, a lot of the players that I've coached, and I've been at a couple weddings, which made me feel old when I got invited to a wedding. But, those are great. And I think ultimately, I love basketball and I love teaching and I love all of that, but the relationships that we end up building, seeing things through, with taking over a program and the recruiting and, these last 2 years, I've really got players that fit the system I want to play and all that. And that whole process, I love that process. And, I kind of eat, sleep and breathe it. And, I don't think I can't envision something else right now that I'd want to be doing. And, I love those two parts, is that process and the relationships you end up building.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. When you got the job, the head coach job at Vernon, when you were kind of just handed it essentially, did you ever in your wildest dreams see it playing out to where it is today? Back then?
No, I definitely did not see this happening. I think there were times where I, thought about, hey, it'd be, coaching, but no, I definitely didn't. The fact that it played out and I still live in Vernon and it's UBCO, I couldn't have written that book and definitely did not see it playing out this way.
Right. Again, I know you said it before, it's the kind of the road less traveled with no plan, but I think I don't think you said Stolen Vernon, UBCO couldn't have kind of worked out any better, I don't think.
No, not for me. That's for sure.
The last one that we ask everybody, and just, again, you mentioned it off the top, kind of growing the coverage, and you've mentioned it with Jaeli and Jordan with the lack of attention that they got. Yeah. Jordan for her whole career, Jaeli for her first year. How do we get the level of coverage, attention, admiration, and respect for U Sports, CCAA basketball to where it should be? From your perspective as a coach, what are some things that you want to see done or would help kind of get that to where it needs to be or should be?
Great question. And I that was one I definitely wanted to get to because I'm a little bit passionate about that. There's a lot of things that I think, simple, small things that could be done. One thing locally, like within our division, so Canada West, OUA. I don't know if this is happening out there, but it's certainly not happening here. Like, why is each weekend not just very simply, even our local news, each weekend not covered? That there's games going on each weekend. Like, our local news station could cover those games. I'm going to get bigger too, and I think, when UBC is playing UVic, and that's a bit of a rivalry game, or we're playing TRU, that's a bit of a rivalry game. I'm not sure of all the rivalry games that would be in Ontario or other conferences, but pick a rivalry weekend. How do we get that on Sportsnet, TSN, and maybe not a whole game, but maybe the preview of the rivalry weekend? Hey, it's rivalry weekend in Canada West. We've got TRU versus UBCO. We could do a 3-4 minute segment, locally, bigger stage. We're not talking, I'm not asking TSN to come in and cover UBCO versus TRU, right, UBC versus UFIC. But, I watch a lot of sports. There's little 2-3 minute segments on a lot of the stations that I think we could fit in there. I think we could get in there. I really agree. Do. And how would we get excited about it? There's sometimes that, UBC or I can't remember, UBC or UVic was those two teams, but one of the players on that team, she had like a record-breaking 44 or an insane amount of points. Great, great story. Locally, it had a little bit of attention, but nothing on the bigger stage in Canada, and it's almost a frustration for me, and I know it is for you. And I love that you are bringing this to the attention.
Yeah.
That, and I'm not just saying women's basketball. I will say the U Sport and the CCAA and all of that, like everything, men's and women's, just needs to be. Our local newspaper does a little write-up, to some games sometimes. So, okay, I'm not saying that that's not good. I'll take it.
But that's an issue too, right? It's sometimes. It's not.
Yes, not
every week. It's not every game. It's when it's convenient for them, which I think that's I know they have their own kind of agendas, but when they have a little write-up sometimes, I know what you mean by little write-up. Like there's nothing to it. It's kind of skeleton, like change this school name to this and change the score, and it's 2 paragraphs and you're done. And the picture's from like 4 years ago.
Yeah. And I think for me, player profiles would be awesome to do. I'll go back to some of the media, like bigger media coverage in Canada. How are we not at least, like I watched, here's a good example. I watched, it was 2 years ago, I believe, Canada West Championship, men's and women's was on, I believe it was Sportsnet. But when I went on my program on the TV, it said the top 50 plays of the month. That's what it said. So if you didn't know it was on at that time and it was on that channel, you weren't watching it. You weren't watching it. How is there no build up to a Canada West Championship or a championship season? The playoffs there's no real coverage of the playoffs. Like I said, a weekly, here's the matchups. Let's break down the matchups. I don't think we can jump, like we talked about, fix it and jump to like weekly coverage on these big stations. But I think we could get to weekly coverage of the games that are going on, in a 4-minute segment, that these are the games. Then somebody that maybe likes basketball but doesn't have a team, maybe UBCO becomes their team because they're going to cheer for the underdog.
Right.
Something like that. And now somebody in different provinces cheering for us because of that little piece. And I think if you can gain 1 or 2 fans, it's worth it. If you can, grow the game. And obviously I'm a little bit passionate about it. I've been at the level for 8 years, and it's been bizarre to me that there's so little, coverage. And I know that sometimes coaches have reached out and said, hey, this is happening, and really no response. I think someone like yourself, you're doing, you've done more that I've noticed than most. And, I know we really appreciate it. And my team, they know I'm going to be on the podcast. First of all, they thought it was great because I'm not a big social media person. So they thought this is awesome.
Even better. Perfect.
Yeah. Coach is going to be on there. And they were pumped. They were like, talk about our team. They wanted me to make sure I said the Heat way. That little excitement. I don't think that people realize what that can do for a team and a program and stuff like that. And we're not a program that, we're not going to get a lot of calls for some of these things. So, we're very happy to do it. But I think there has to be weekly coverage, locally, nationally, some kind of rivalry week. Like we all have them. We have it out
for
here.
Sure.
That has a bigger coverage. Now it's a longer story. And maybe there's stories of individual players from, certain teams that have a bigger, profile or creating a profile, getting that started. I don't know if it is as easy as I believe it could be. But like I said, I've watched some sports and watching the sports channel and going, I think U Sport or college basketball could have that 2-minute segment, and we could build, a bigger brand for ourselves.
And even if it's not on TV, and I get the understanding that money's a big thing, and like you said, we don't want TSN to bring the whole bus and everybody out to cover the UBC TRU game, even the web presence, like
Yes.
even like if you have written weekly previews, or even just, I know it can't be hard to get the top 10 U Sports scores and top 15 rankings of CCAA on the ticker.
Yes.
It's not hard. Just to even have it somewhat visible to the average fan, because if you're watching your top 50 plays in the month thinking, okay, like whatever, it's going to scroll across the bottom at least 4 times in a half-hour segment.
Yeah.
And web presence is a lot easier to manage than a TV game. And I keep coming back to TSN. Like, I'm on their mobile site right now. U Sports is the 4th last sport option. It's above lacrosse, wrestling, and other sports. It is below such things as the Invictus Games, esports, NASCAR, horse racing is above it. When TSN is one of our major sport networks, and your university sporting governing body is the 4th last option you can pick. That's an issue.
That's an issue.
A big issue. And there's really no coverage of it until Nationals rolls around. There's no playoff coverage. And then you're there for a week. You're trying to get everybody caught up on the 8 teams that are there.
Yeah.
Nationals end, and you're okay, we're done for another year. We'll see you guys again in March. There's 11 months in between nationals. There's 51 weeks in between national tournaments where you can do anything. Player profiles, rivalries, literally anything now.
Records.
Nobody
even
does.
Players that have broken records, that particular year. There's so many things that could happen to build an excitement for that coverage on that day. Like, I know that I'm tuning in to watch. Hopefully I'm at Nationals more than tuning in. But when I'm not, I'm tuning in. But there's no excitement built up. I know what's going on with the teams. I know that this team's overcome these adversities and things like that. But there's no build up. And I think that for me, if you're an average fan, you're missing a big part of the stories that go into it. And, even this year, Sask coming in and win the national championship, there was just not enough buzz for what they did this year and how well they played. And, just not there. And there's other teams. I'm picking Canada West teams because that's what I'm familiar with. But, it's definitely a gap in our sport.
Well, and it comes down to, I remember the first day, like the CBC reporters were getting coaches' names wrong, like the pronunciations wrong. I'm like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because they hyped it up that it was going to be live streamed this year, which is great. You're hyping up the platform you can watch it as opposed to what you're actually showing, which is another kind of hurdle, but whatever. But then you aren't knowledgeable enough to properly articulate and describe what's happening because you're getting coaches' names wrong.
Yeah.
That's an issue too. And heaven forbid these people tuned in to watch, you're getting our national women's team's coach's name wrong. Like,
that's the problem.
That's a headache. But I think, again, like we said with the fight for racial equality, there's a lot of little steps that can be taken, whether it's an increased web presence, it's a consistent coverage all year long, and it's not restricted to October to March.
Yeah.
There scores on tickers, websites, whatever it is, more people doing it. I don't know what the solution is, but there's really not a lot at all.
No.
And then again, when the season ends, I don't. Again, I say this. I've said this a few times. I don't want to sound douchey. I don't know if there's anybody else that does it in the off season.
No. Yeah.
But myself,
I don't see it. And it's been, I've been, probably 4 or 5 years ago, kind of just assumed it was going to fix itself maybe. And someone's going to recognize that, hey, there's, records being broken. There's, a lot of great, and good basketball, really good basketball being played. A friend of mine said, hey, what would be cool is, this was probably 2 years ago, if once, and this isn't even a lot, and I don't know, if it's feasible, but if once a month they covered one game. And it was a game that, maybe it's a rivalry weekend, maybe it's something, but they actually covered the game. How much more attention would that bring to a program, the sport, and I know here in the Okanagan, and probably I would say everywhere, there's young kids that, would love to hear more about their favorite local player that they were at that camp that they went to, and seeing them on TSN and stuff like that. And I just think it's a big gap that could, with a few small things, could just really be special. And there's a lot of talented, good basketball being played on both sides and at multiple levels. I would love to see more. I'd love to see more locally. I'd love to see more nationally. So I'm with you on that one for sure.
I know SIDs do all they can, but I mean, again, there's probably one SID at schools because it's nowhere near the states, and you're trying to cover however many sports you have at a school, and locally you try to rely on them, and you get it sometimes, not all the time. And if you do, it's so-and-so beat so-and-so by this, so-and-so had 27 points. Done. That's your coverage. And I remember we had local media come out. We hosted provincials here this year, and local media came out for the finals, took photos for 5 minutes, and left to go cover the hockey game.
Right.
They do it sometimes when it's convenient for them. And I think locally, provincially, nationally, there's a lot that can be done, which it won't happen overnight again.
No.
But at the same time, you got to keep talking about it all year to get it to where it is. We can't just go from October to March and end in 6 months, because you're restarting every 6 months, trying to regain everything you had in March that you've now lost. And it's just like a rinse and repeat for 6 months. And you can't take the summers off, because then you just lose all your momentum. And I don't mean don't go full bore coverage-wise, but at least have some sort of presence online, social media, whatever, to say, we're still here. This is what we're doing. These are the players that are coming in. So when October comes around, they already know the faces, they know the names, they know more about them than just who are these people that are playing this game. Yeah. Who are these teams? Who are these coaches? Whoever. But I like your idea of one game a month, cover it. I'm just saying, there's 4 conferences: AUS, Quebec, OUA, Canada West. October's out east, November's Quebec, January is Ontario, February is Canada West, March is nationals. I mean, it writes itself.
Yeah, and just in that, momentum will be built. Somebody will hear a story that resonates with them, that they'll want to follow up on, and that team did make nationals, or there's just so much that goes with it. And I know, like you said, there's social media coverage is, a lot of this isn't hard. It's just someone kind of directing it and saying, hey, we're going to do it and take it on. So yeah, I definitely promote that. And I wish we could, this year, let's excuse this year, but moving forward, I hope that they can definitely find a way to create a better platform, and just like you said, just the coverage, like, and not be a one, because there's more to the basketball and whatnot than that 1 weekend at nationals. And that's what I think is missing to really gain excitement and build up new fans. Our sport needs new fans. We need to have just kind of, it can't always be family and friends that are at the game. Like, you want to get some people that are there because they just connect with that coach, that player, that team, and that's what I think is missing in a lot of the lack of coverage.
I think basically, kind of off that, there's more to that 1 week. There's more to the year than just that 1 week of nationals. When nationals ends, the clock restarts, and then that week 1 leads up to nationals. So whatever you do from that point on builds up to next year's nationals, because last year's done. Everything you do from then on will help build anticipation for nationals. And I think this is the year now where you try things, where you try to build that momentum, because now you're going to be a year and a half without any sanctioned games at the U Sports level. If you don't do anything from last March to next September, good luck.
Yeah, you've missed everything. Yeah.
You thought 6 months were hard. Nobody's talking about it now for a year and a half.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, not going to happen. Yeah.
No. Anything you want to add in? Any last words from you? Any shout outs to players that may have asked for one specifically in your chats beforehand?
No one asked for one specifically, but they're happy I'm here doing it, and the team was excited for this to be going on. And just for myself and UBCO and our program, we really appreciate you doing this and having me on here. And I've enjoyed all the communication, and this has been awesome. Like I really like coming on and talk about a program, talking basketball and any subject. So yeah, appreciate it.
Well, you can let the team know too. I wore my UBCO blue color shirt.
That's
so
right.
I mean, I try to coordinate as best I can. Yeah. So, but no, I want to thank you for doing this. This was a ton of fun. I know we've gone back and forth on email a bit to make it happen. So I appreciate that. And anything I can do for you guys going forward, or if you want to come back on again, if you had enough fun and we're willing to do it a second time, by all means, there's a spot here for you on the other side of the screen.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks again.